Today is May 23rd, 2018, and I'm interviewing James J. Stotler at his home in Norfolk, Connecticut. The interviewer is Mary Louise Torrent, working with Central Connecticut State University and the Veterans History Project. Okay, please state your full name, date of birth, city and state in which you live.
Okay, James J. Stotler. I was born in Torrington, Connecticut. And what's your next?
And city and state in which you live.
Oh, live in Norfolk, Connecticut all my life, and that's in
Okay. In which war did you serve?
the Vietnam War.
What was your branch of service?
U.S. Navy Seabees. I was an MCB-4.
And that's your highest rank? MCB-4?
No.
Okay.
I attained the rank of third-class petty officer, heavy equipment operator.
Third class petty, heavy equipment operator. In what general locations did you serve?
Da Nang, Vietnam, with trips to An Hoa, Vietnam, Phu Bai, Vietnam, Hue, Quang Tri, and that's about the extent of it.
Oh, okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted in the Navy Reserve in March of 1964, and my enlistment was a two years active reserve, 2 years active duty, 2 years inactive reserve, and I was released from my service obligation 25 March 1970.
Okay. Where were you living at the time that you enlisted in the reserves?
Norfolk, Connecticut.
Okay. And you did recall the date, March 1964 that you enlisted?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's on the papers. Why did you join? Why did you enlist?
Well, at the time, I'd been going to Yukon Nights at the Torrington branch, and I had just transferred to the main campus at Storrs, and I got my draft notice. So I started looking for reserve units that had spaces available, and I wound up with the Seabees, which I had always wanted to be in, but I didn't think that they'd be taking new members. And 2 weeks after I enlisted, they closed the ranks, and they weren't taking anybody else.
Okay, that pretty much explains why you picked the service branch. So you were looking to join the Seabees, and that was Navy. So
Right.
that's why you chose
That's
Navy.
correct.
Okay. Tell me about your first days in the service.
Okay, since I was 2 years active reserve, I went to boot camp the first summer at Great Lakes, Illinois. That was a 2-week boot camp, and then I had volunteered for 2 more weeks, and that was at Floyd Bennett Field, New York. And the reason I did that was so that I could go on active duty as an E3 rather than an E2.
Oh, okay. It's E3 rather than E2. Okay. How did it feel when you were there?
Well,
When you first experienced the
oh,
boot camp
first
and
went to boot camp?
training?
Well, we flew into Chicago, and we had to take the train up to Great Lakes, and we met a lot of other recruits. There was a group that went from Hartford, and the train went, it wasn't just a dedicated train, but when we got up to Great Lakes, they stopped the train on the tracks, and you walked to the main gate for the Training Center.
Oh, okay, so it was a regular train, but you all have, it wasn't designated.
It wasn't a
as
designated
transport.
train.
Okay.
but
Okay,
That was a designated stop, let's put it that way.
designated stop,
But
okay,
it wasn't at a station.
right. I've heard about, yeah, the train transport. Tell me about your boot camp training experiences.
Well, that was very interesting. They had that very well planned, and they told us that the fellows that were overweight were going to lose weight, and the fellows that were underweight were going to put on weight. And our day began at 6 o'clock in the morning and went till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, with lights out at 10 o'clock, and then the cycle repeated itself.
What was that like? Was it most of the training like shooting and going to classes?
Well, we
and
went to
drill?
classes that covered
marching.
everything from firefighting, and we actually did firefighting. We went through the gas house. We had to go in and put a gas mask on and clear the mask, and we were taught how to do that, so it wasn't a big deal. Then we had to pass a swimming test, and you had to jump off a high dive that was equal to the height of the deck of an aircraft carrier.
Ooh,
And you went in feet first, and you were told to stay feet first. And because you could get severely injured from that height if you didn't keep your feet together. Then you had to swim a certain distance in the pool, and those that got in trouble and everything were taken out of the pool, and then they'd have to go through and repeat. Not necessarily that day, but they could go that day. They had to pass the swimming test.
had to pass it. Wow. And then did you have like marching drills too and that
Oh,
type of thing?
it started every day with breakfast and calisthenics, and you marched everywhere as a group. I was a platoon leader that
Oh,
each
nice.
group had 2 platoons with 4 squads in each platoon, and a group commander. And then there was a first class petty officer that was in charge of your group. And also, you were taught how to pack your locker, how to fold your clothes, how to wash your clothes, how to tie your clothes up on a clothesline. And all of this was discipline, how to shine your shoes, how to take care of your uniform when you didn't have an iron, how to make it look presentable. There was
Interesting.
a whole lot, and we were wearing our whites
Yes.
a
I've
lot
heard
of the
about
time. Then there were other days when we were wearing our dungarees and cranberry shirts,
that. Yeah.
depending on, like for firefighting, you weren't wearing your whites. They also taught at the swimming pool how to use your uniform as flotation devices, all the way from your hat to your jumper to your jeans.
Wow.
So it was very informative, and you were taught how to start all the various pumps for pumping out the billages, and how to fight fires on the ships, and what you could use and couldn't use, what would work, and the manner in which they presented all this stuff in class. And Great Lakes was an interesting climate, and this is why I'm bringing this up. Great Lakes can be extremely hot,
Yes.
and it can be extremely cold, and it varies from one day to the next, or morning to afternoon. And our platoon messed up one day, and we had to drop and do push-ups on the parade ground, and it was asphalt, and our hands all got burned. So it was interesting.
You didn't mess up again.
No.
So this wasn't particularly a CB camp.
No,
It's
this-
not, it was a Navy camp for what you're
Regular-
saying about the ship and everything else.
Regular Navy, this had nothing to do
Okay.
with the Seabees.
Okay,
There
Right.
was no CB training here. This was
okay.
regular Navy training.
It sounds like it, yeah. Do you remember any of your instructors?
The fellow who was in charge of our, it wasn't a platoon, I forgot what they called it. He was a first class, real squared away, as all of these, you might as well say drill instructors were.
Yeah.
But he left us after the first week and a few days because his mother had passed away, and we got a chief to finish our boot camp. He wasn't nearly as, he was a good guy, but he wasn't nearly as squared away as the first class was.
Okay.
But you learned a lot.
Right. Part of a team.
And you also, what's that?
Part of a team.
Yeah.
You're there together.
And one night, one day, part of my platoon, because I was a platoon leader, didn't hang their clothes up right. They didn't use these little strings with metal ends that they call tie-ties, and they're about that long. And you stuck it through the loop, and one side had to be wrapped clockwise, the other side counterclockwise, and then the two came together, and you tied them in a square knot, and they had to be pulled, and they had to be the same length. So they didn't, the guys didn't tie them right. Some ends were longer than others, some of them had 4 wraps instead of 3 or whatever. So the squad leaders and platoon leaders had to retie all the clothes for their group.
Oh.
So I was out there till 9 o'clock retying clothes.
Did you pass it on to your group?
Well, I was passed on because that was the reason for it.
Yeah. Right.
To make sure,
That
like,
you're
I
responsible,
would jump
yes.
on the squad leaders and they'd jump on the guys.
Yes. Yep. But again, all those little details, even though it seems picayune at the time or annoying, it's
Oh yeah,
really
this is
important.
all part of the training.
Right. How'd you get through it?
Fine.
Good.
I mean, I had many of these folks from all over the country. I mean, I was a junior in college. Most of them were high school kids.
Yes.
I was also 23. They were 18.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an advantage of being older and with a better background.
Right.
So, yeah, I got through it with no problem. I helped this kid from down south. I mean, he was sweating. He didn't think he was going to make it. And then he sat next to me in classes, and I did everything I could to help him get through
Yeah.
so he wouldn't have to be held back.
And that's what
And
you
he
teach.
did get through, just barely.
That's what you do. Okay, after that boot camp, where did you go after Great Lakes?
Okay, then I went to Floyd Bennett Field, and that was CB training. I was assigned to the mechanic shop, and we were working on the equipment for Floyd Bennett Field, even though I wanted to be an equipment operator. I wasn't rated at that time, so the closest thing was mechanic, so that's what we did. And that was good, and then I came home, and I was home and in college for 2 years. And then I graduated from UConn on June 13th, 1966, and I went on active duty on June 27th, 1966. I went to 3rd Naval District Receiving Station in New York. And then, from there, I was there for 2 weeks, a week and a half. We were assigned to the 31st Naval now I don't remember it. Anyway,
I can look that up.
Port Hueneme, California. And we went out, we were attached to the regiment out there for about a month, 3 weeks. And then MCB-4 was coming back from a Vietnam deployment, and they were, fellows were being released because their enlistments were up, and they were putting on replacements and enlarging the battalion. So we got wind of that, and we went and volunteered to join MCB-4, and that's how I got to MCB-4.
Okay. And then, what were your first impressions? Oh no, this is more about your training. So, and then what happened? What was your assignment after that?
What, at MCB-4?
Right. Or did you have any assignments when you were at
At the regiment?
the
No.
CB camp or the regiment? It was more training, right?
Well, that was just kind of dead time.
Oh, okay.
That was part of the wait time
Okay.
with really nothing to do.
Okay.
And that was one of the motivations to join the battalion, any battalion, because then you'd start moving forward. You wouldn't be just treading water, so to speak.
Okay. Right. Gotcha.
So I went to MCB-4, and we were in MCB-4, so we were also had liberty every night instead of every other night. And we also were wearing our greens. We were issued greens instead of green uniforms instead of our dungarees and cranberry shirts,
Okay.
or our whites. And that's the upstairs smoke. Don't worry about it. Then we took, and every morning we'd have to muster, and then we were free to go for the rest of the day. This was an MCB-4, but you couldn't leave the base during the day.
And this is the one you had volunteered for because you
Right.
wanted to get moving.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
But they were also had, the battalion was on leave. It was just the new people coming in
Right.
that
Okay.
were there.
Okay.
So one day at muster, the senior chief that was in the Alpha Company office, being an equipment operator, I was in Alpha Company, he said, we need somebody to do some bookwork and filing in the office. And I was tired of doing nothing, so I raised my hand and I went in the office.
Okay.
And it wasn't a joke, it was filing, and it was, as guys went on leave and came in off leave, I had to check them in and find out where they were staying and what their bunk number was and what
Oh, cool.
barracks they were in. And what special skills they had. So that's what I did for that period of time, probably the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
When the battalion came back off leave, then the training for the next deployment started
And this is in California.
in California
At that
at Port
point.
Hueneme.
Okay. Okay.
So we they had schools in all types of things, and I put in for schools for equipment operators and for this and that, and all the things I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't assign me that. Now, I'd already graduated from college, so
Right.
they didn't assign me that. They sent me to surveying school
Okay.
and setting grades and stuff. Okay, that's fine. I was still working in the office too, though.
Okay.
After that, why, then we went, and that took probably, I don't know, months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Wow.
Then we went to military training, and that lasted probably a month. And then we went to Camp Pendleton for qualification with the M14. We got down there and it rained every day.
Ugh.
2 weeks. It rained one whole solid week. So they tried to cram everything into the next week, because if you fall back a whole week, they've got battalions
Yes.
scheduled.
Yes.
So anyway, during that week it was raining, we were just in the barracks there treading water. I mean, they're playing cards and whatever, writing home. Now, there were no electronic devices, there was none
No.
of that.
No?
So then we got out on the rifle range and we shot, that lasted a week. And we had 3 days of practice, and then you shot for qualification. And I shot expert at qualification day.
Okay.
But we were the last relay to shoot. We'd been pulling targets all day long. The last night it was starting to get dark. And the guys that I was with from the office, they had all done really well during the week. It came qualification day, they were ticked off because the range coaches were trying to speed everything up because it was starting to get dark, and the guys shot on the wrong targets and other things, and I'm there, just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. Just leave me alone.
Get through this.
So I did, and I was successful.
Okay. And then when were you shipped overseas?
Okay, that was in December.
Okay.
We went home on leave for the Christmas holiday. Most of the battalion, there had to be, some that didn't.
Okay.
And then when we came back, we had probably 2 weeks more of some training that hadn't been done.
Okay.
And then we started flying the battalion to Da Nang.
Okay.
I forget which number flight I was on. I know we flew over on a C-141. And that was before the days of transistors, all tube radios, and they had trouble with the radios on the plane, and they had trouble with the seal on the back doors. Consequently, it took us 51 hours to go
Oh, jeez.
over, and it should have taken 24.
Did you fly directly to Da Nang from California?
No, I was on every single island in